This conference will now be recorded.
हाँ लिपिका ठीक है आगे अरे वो ऊपर नीचे हो रहा है वो A famous Satyajit Ray film some decades ago captured the Indian self-absorption that shapes its larger awareness of the world. वहां पर जाने से पहले इस बुक में इस जगह पर जो मेन लाइन दी है द heaviest penalty for declining to rule is to be ruled by someone inferior, Plato. So in optional we would be reading Plato, and what we see is the heaviest penalty for declining to rule is to be ruled by someone inferior, which means that if you feel, let's normalize this situation, normalize this statement. If you feel that you are the competent ruler, right? If you feel that you are the competent ruler, and even then you decline to rule, which means that you are letting someone else who do not have a similar or good skill set to rule you. जैसे आप देखते हैं ना, एक सिंड्रोम होता है, we do not vote in elections. There is a syndrome that we do not vote in elections, and then after it we keep complaining, right? Why? When you had the chance to decide the ruler, you didn't do it, and then you keep complaining. And in case of India, how it would normalize? In case of India, it would go as if India declines to join the global world order, if India does not share the leadership of the global world order, India is by default condemning itself to a world order that is led by China, where Indians would forever be subjugated, where Indians won't be treated as important player, where Chinese high-headedness would always imply to India. So if you decline to rule, if you decline to take part in the leadership dispensation, then you are condemning yourself to be ruled by someone inferior. And that's the worst, right? A Satyajit Ray film some decades ago captured the Indian self-absorption that shapes its larger awareness of the world. It depicts two Indian Nawabs engrossed in a chess game while the British East India Company steadily took over their wealthy kingdom of Awadh. Today, as another global power rises, which one? China. That to India's immediate proximity, this country cannot be oblivious once again to its consequences. Read the language. Why we do these books? Read the language, how he has greatly interconnected example with the content, right? How he has greatly interconnected example with content, how he has started how he has started with Shatranj Ke Khiladi and how he has applied that into the subject. So you must remember that these are the kind of things, how you bind your essay, how you weave your essay. When you start with an example, the next important thing is how you connect that line with the next. How you connect that line with the next. Yes or no? Right? तो इस चीज को हमको ध्यान रखना है फिर. It depicted two Indian Nawabs engrossed in a chess game while the British East India Company steadily took over their wealthy kingdom of Awadh. Today, as another global power rises, that too in India's immediate proximity, this country cannot be oblivious once again to its consequences. Ideally, the emergence of China should serve as an inspiration to sharpen India's competitive instincts. Again, Atmanirbhar Bharat. The emergence of China should serve as an inspiration to sharpen India's competitive instincts. Janta, do you understand? Do you understand that we are talking about Atmanirbhar Bharat? Why? When India will develop the capabilities, when India will develop the manufacturing capabilities, it can compete with China or it can substantially dent China. The denting of China starts with A, banning your market. Because you are a market of 1.2 billion people. You are the 40% of China's entire market, 40 to 50% of entire China's market, and then starts your own production. You produce and compete with China, undercut them, beat them, beat them in prices. मतलब चाहे तो आप वैसे भी मार सकते हैं, but beat them in prices, right? But at the very least, it should still a serious debate about the direction of world politics and its implications for us, right? So this is important because in parallel there are other momentous shifts underway. A larger rebalancing was already in evidence, now overlaid by greater regional volatility, higher risk taking, stronger nationalism, and a rejection of globalization. Every word, how you use these words is important. A larger rebalancing was already in evidence. Now, over what do you mean by larger rebalancing? The larger rebalancing means that the world which was unipolar for a moment, for a brief phase, which was unipolar, now it is rebalancing itself. Now it is rebalancing itself towards multipolarity. So a larger rebalancing was already in evidence. Bablu, what are you doing here? Mr. Bablu, Mr. Bablu, what are you doing here?
मुझे लगा कि अच्छा ठीक है, मैं ऐसे ही देखने के लिए आया था कि क्या था, हमारे लिए तो नहीं। मैं आपको मैसेज ही कर रहा था।
तुम्हारे लिए अभी नहीं है, तुम अभी वही करो, रिकॉर्ड कर लेंगे, देख लेना।
ठीक है।
और मजा लेना हो तो 10-5 मिनट ले सकते हो, मजा आ जाएगा।
चलिए फिर 5-10 मिनट करते हैं कंटिन्यू।
हाँ, ये सच बात है, तुम मजा ही लेने आए थे, तो तुमने झिला दिया बात। म्यूट करो, ठीक है। A larger rebalancing was already in evidence, now overlaid by greater regional volatility. What do you mean by greater regional volatility? The USA is withdrawing. The USA is withdrawing from the global world order. The USA is setting the new path. I won't use the word withdrawing. The USA is disrupting the normals. The USA is saying that do not rely on us. Build your own national capabilities. Contribute to the world order. USA is promoting multipolarity in a way. United States is promoting multipolarity in a way. It is saying that do not excessively rely on us, but build your national capabilities, develop a multipolar order, and contribute to the world order that is fair, rule-based, transparent, representative, democratic in nature. But for that, we need to follow the principle of every voice must be heard. Every voice must be heard, from Guinea to India to Tanzania to USA to Nepal to Bhutan to Kazakhstan to Russia. Irrespective of the power, the money, the economy they have, every voice must be heard. That should be the multilateralism, the face of multilateralism going forward. So when we say regional volatility, there is volatility in every region. Middle East, there is a new geopolitical churn in Middle East. Now Israel has second agreement with another Arab state, that is Bahrain, after UAE. So there is a rise of moderate Arabs, and then there is a rise of revival Islamists that, under the leadership of Turkey, Iran, and Pakistan. In India, there is a regional imbalance between India and China, the Nepal conundrum, the Bangladesh problem, then the Pakistan thing. These are all going on. So there is greater regional volatilities. If you go to the Europe, there is this Brexit, right? You simply cannot decide whether to remain in Britain or to leave Britain. And the entire issue of Brexit is a facade, because even if Britain leaves Brexit, Britain will remain in the European Union for all practical purposes. Britain will get benefits nearly for all practical purposes. So till now, India has been engaging more with nations of Europe and not with the European Union, which has its head office in Brussels, Belgium. So what we are saying now, that we must engage with Brussels. We must engage with Brussels rather than engaging with. Also engage with nation states. We also engage with Brussels. There is regional volatility every. Yes or no? मजा आ रही है, नहीं आ रही है? जोर से बोलो, मिलकर बोलो, सारे बोलो. वाह, जय जय शंकर. ठीक है, चलिए, ठीक है. सो नहीं, मतलब मैं चाहता हूं कि मैं उनकी बुक को जिस तरह से पढ़ा रहा हूं, ये वीडियो मैं उनको भेजूं एक दिन और वो देखें, ठीक है? बिकॉज कई बार हो सकता है ऐसा हो कि अपन वहां जा रहे हो जहां हो सकता है कि इतना डीप उन्होंने मतलब लिखा ना हो. ऑब्वियसली ही हैज जीनियस माइंड, सो यू वुड हैव थॉट दैट, बट हैज नॉट लिखा ना हो, ठीक है? तो the world is marred with disruptions. The world is marred with disruptions. There are frequent disruptions every day. You see a United States pulling out of WTO. You see a Turkey leading the Islamist nexus. You see Turkey calling out for Islamist revival. You see fundamental Islam rising. Then you see a moderate Arabs. Then you see Israel and UAE getting together. Then you see a Russia and China proximity, with Russia signing deals with India, India diversifying its partnership to France. आवाज में लैग बाकी लोगों को भी हो रहा है क्या? आवाज में लैग बाकी लोगों को भी हो रहा है क्या? कह रहे हैं आवाज नहीं आ रही, आवाज नहीं आ रही, आवाज नहीं आ रही. क्या हो गया भाई? अब आ रही है? नहीं, बहुत बुलंद आवाज आ रही है, ठीक है। So, IR is characterized with my बुलंद आवाज, माता आ जाती है, मैं इसको आसान भाषा में कहता हूँ, माता आ जाती है IR पढ़ाते समय। Is it fine now, people? अब ठीक है, आवाज आ रही है प्रॉपर? चलिए, so a larger rebalancing was already in evidence, now overlaid by greater regional volatility, higher risk taking. Higher risk taking. The countries are becoming inherently more risk takers, stronger nationalism, and a rejection of globalization. Stronger nationalism and a rejection of globalization. See, why nationalism is on the rise? Can you try to think why nationalism is on the rise? Why everywhere? You have all kind of nationalism. You have constructive nationalism, that is in India, that uh, keep your country clean, build your national capacities, Atmanirbhar Bharat, and Ek Bharat, Shresth Bharat. Then, oh please, जो मैं बोल रहा हूँ, this is not the चाय पान की दुकान वाला stuff जो आजकल आप देखते हैं ना, everywhere negative you see, ठीक है? So हमारा जो nationalism है, that is more constructive, ठीक है? Where we use the nationalism for development, where we use the nationalism for integrating India, where we use nationalism to evoke the cultural affinity, ठीक है? फिर ऐसी स्थिति में जो इंडिया का नेशनलिज्म है, that is more constructive nationalism. Indian nationalism is more constructive nationalism. Indian nationalism is marred with, sorry, Indian nationalism has a basic characteristic of working for the nation while keeping the fabric of the nation intact. Then there are many insecure nationalism. There's an insecure nationalism where you resort to nationalism for your political gains, or you are skeptical of globalization and then you resort to nationalism. We do not have that kind, because what we are saying is build national capacities and then integrate with the global market. So our nationalism is more wider, more comprehensive, right? And why we are talking about nationalism today? We should understand this point, that why we are talking about nationalism today. What we have to do with nationalism? Why we are talking about nationalism? Because one important thing, is failure of globalization. One important thing is failure of globalization to give solutions to the modern problems. Globalization promised to say end inequalities, end poverty, and blah blah blah. But yes, it has been successful, but the success has been skewed in favor of developed nations. How many of you understand this point? How many of you understand this point? मैं बहुत सिंपली, बहुत आसान भाषा में ये कह रहा हूं कि ग्लोबलाइजेशन promised to end the problems of many, but it has been successful, but that success has been skewed in favor of rich nations, developed nations. Yes or no? Because the developed nations has benefited more from globalization. The developed nations has benefited more from globalization, right? Yeah. So why there is a rejection of globalization? Now the developed nation has benefited from globalization, but now they don't want it. So the insecurities among the developed world is a problem. Insecurities among the developed world now is a problem. Why? Because when they benefited from globalization, that is fine. But now when the developing world is entering the foray of globalization, now they are crying. Why? Because they are saying that भैया हमारे job losses हो रहे हैं, हमारी market skewed हो रही है, हमारी opportunities जा रही हैं, ठीक है? और अब हम globalization नहीं चाहते. So it is kind of where you create a concept for your own benefit, and when you don't benefit from this, so you end, you abandon the logic, right? So for all the talks of liberalism and globalization, it means that actually they were fooling the world for their own profit. All these lofty principles, all these uh, great looking ideas was overall for their own benefit, because they are not pursuing these ideas when they face challenge from these ideas. Then you have an India who have a problem with globalization. It is not withdrawing from globalization. It is saying that okay, let me find a solution. What I will do, I will build my national capacities and then come back, then integrate myself into the national scene. So the idea is the idea is what kind of mindset we have. That is important. If you abandon an idea when you face challenge from it, it shows that your mentality is only limited to yourself. But when you find alternate ways, when you find alternatives to that, then it means that okay, you are actually doing something, right? तो उस चीज को ध्यान रखिएगा, ठीक है? Any problem अभी तक? बाकी लोग right. But the critical change is the recalibrated posture of an America that has long been the bedrock of contemporary international system. The critical change is the recalibrated America. See, there are two arguments. First is that Donald Trump is abandoning the liberal order. Second is Donald Trump is forcing the world order that inherently became more Chinese to come out clean and reform itself. You have a US president who is now saying that reform the United Nations and WTO. For long, USA has never shied away, sorry, for long, USA have shied away or ignored the talk of reforms in multilateral organizations. But now is the time where the US is saying that we need to reform the multilateral organization. And we must. We must. We should take this opportunity of, we should take this proposal of United States forward and use it to build you should use this opportunity to push for you should use this opportunity to push for reforms. Right? So the idea is you have an opportunity now to build an international order in which major stakeholders respect rules. Major stakeholders respect rules. Major stakeholders play by rules. Major stakeholders respect democracy. Major stakeholders work for uplifting their citizens. Major stakeholders work for human rights. Major stakeholders believe in the liberal principles. And they do not undermine, hijack, or grab lands and sovereignties of other nations. Yes or no? इशारे समझ रहे हैं जो बोल रहा हूं इसको जब आप रिवाइज करेंगे तो आपको समझ में आएगा कि these are the words that you need to write in your answers whether it is optional or GS of IR because that makes you sound like someone who has knowledge about international relations and foreign policy. The terms are important. जब मैं एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन पढ़ाऊंगा तभी मैं आपको सेम टर्म्स बताऊंगा सेम एज इन सेम तरीके से अलग टर्म्स बताऊंगा. Yes or no? Because global happenings are not always factored fully into its internal dynamics, such developments have often passed India by. Sorry. Its response to China's rise may will determine the direction of contemporary politics. See, the Chinese rise is an event that has been long in making. China has been very smart about its rise. China has made friends when it suited China. China made friends with United States of America in the Richard Nixon regime. China made friends with India in the 90s when it suited them. When China knew that we have huge development capacity, huge manufacturing capacity, we are getting into the WTO, and now we must flood the Indian market with our products. So China made friends with India, right? Then now China is friends with you can say Arab worlds and Pakistan and blah 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 because that suits China, right? So the idea, the core idea is the China's rise is a watershed moment in the history of geopolitics. USA didn't see this kind of rise coming. USA could not foresee the Chinese model of development. Did India do it? What was India doing? Did India foresee this? Did India foresee the rise of China? And if it did, what it was doing? इस सवाल का जवाब कहानी के अगले एपिसोड में मिलेगा। आज की प्रस्तुति बिल्कुल आज की प्रस्तुति यहीं पर खत्म होती है। ठीक है, दो काम करने हैं।